3.5 years in federal prison. That's the fate of Sean Kingston, once the teenage star who sang the world into summer with Beautiful Girls. On August 15th, 2025, a federal judge sentenced the 35-year-old to prison for his role in a $1 million wire fraud scheme. He wasn't alone. His mother, Janice Turner, received an even longer sentence just a month earlier, 5 years behind bars. The pair weren't charged with minor slip-ups. Prosecutors accused them of masterminding a deliberate scheme that tricked businesses out of luxury cars, high-end jewelry, and electronics worth over $1 million. What shocked fans most wasn't just the crime, but the contrast. This was the same Sean Kingston who once collaborated with pop icons, toured worldwide, and topped charts. Now his name is tied not to music, but to fraud. So how did we get here? To understand Kingston's downfall, let's start at the end. Between April 2023 and March 2024, Kingston and his mother orchestrated a pattern of deception. They approached businesses with confidence, using his celebrity as proof of credibility. They promised wire transfers, showed receipts, and even dangled the idea of promotion in exchange for products. Sellers believed them because who wouldn't believe a platinum artist with millions of followers? But behind the flash, it was all smoke and mirrors. Wire transfers never cleared, payments didn't exist. Jewelry, cars, and electronics were delivered, but the money never arrived. According to court documents, the items included luxury watches, an Escalade, and even a massive custom LED screen. What looked like the life of a successful artist was actually a facade built on empty promises and fraud, and it all came crashing down with a SWAT raid. In May 2024, Kingston's Florida rental home was raided by heavily armed officers. His mother was taken into custody on the spot. Hours later, Kingston was arrested in California, ironically not at a mansion or studio, but at a US Army base where he was scheduled to perform. The story exploded across headlines. The once beloved star was marched into court accused of using fame as a tool for crime. By July, a grand jury indicted both Kingston and Turner on multiple counts of wire fraud and conspiracy. They initially pled not guilty, posting bail, but the evidence was stacked against them. In March 2025, the jury returned a guilty verdict. Kingston's glittering reputation was stripped away, replaced with a criminal record. But the most dramatic chapter came inside the courtroom at sentencing. At sentencing, Kingston's lawyer painted him as emotionally stunted, a 35-year-old man with the mentality of a teenager. They argued his 2011 jet ski accident had left him traumatized, stunting his growth. The defense claimed Kingston wasn't a mastermind criminal, just someone with poor judgment and no grasp of money. Kingston himself spoke directly to the judge, apologizing for his actions and insisting he had learned from his mistakes. The prosecution, however, didn't budge. They dismissed the idea of immaturity, branding him a thief through and through. To them, this wasn't recklessness. It was deliberate manipulation. They argued that Kingston knew exactly what he was doing, using his fame to disarm victims and walk away with their money. In the end, the judge acknowledged Kingston's apology and decision not to testify against his mother. That may have shaved time off his sentence, but the gavel still came down hard. 42 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. His mother received 5 years. The courtroom was stunned, but maybe not as stunned as his fans, because this wasn't just another celebrity scandal. This was a complete reversal of a story that had once inspired millions. To see how tragic this fall really is, you need to rewind the clock. Before the scandals and sentencing, Sean Kingston was the definition of overnight success. Born Keisian Anderson in Miami, he spent his childhood between the US and Jamaica. His grandfather was a noted reggae producer, so music was in his blood. At 17, everything changed. In 2007, he released Beautiful Girls. The reggae pop single exploded globally, hitting #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. The song's catchy melody and youthful charm turned Kingston into a household name almost instantly. He wasn't just a one-hit wonder either. His debut album produced several successful singles, and soon he was collaborating with major artists. He worked with Justin Bieber on the hit Eeny Meeny, teamed up with Nicki Minaj, and recorded with T-Pain and Chris Brown. Tours sold out, his music videos racked up millions of views, and he became one of the youngest artists to reach international stardom. By the late 2000s, Sean Kingston had it all: fame, money, and the promise of a long career. But the higher the rise, the harder the fall. Fame at 17 sounds like a dream, but for Kingston, it was also a curse. With little financial education and no clear guidance, he spent big, lived lavishly, and assumed the money would never stop. But the music industry was evolving fast, and by the early 2000s and 10s, Kingston wasn't dominating charts the way he once did. Then came the 2011 jet ski accident in Miami. He was left critically injured, with doctors saying he was lucky to survive. Recovery took months, and while he eventually returned to music, insiders said he was never the same. His lawyer would later point to that accident as the reason for his stunted maturity and poor judgment. Meanwhile, lawsuits and financial troubles piled up. Reports of unpaid bills, repossessed cars, and defaulted contracts began to surface. By his 30s, Kingston was still trying to maintain the image of a superstar, but the money simply wasn't there. And when the money ran out, desperation took over. Kingston's fraud wasn't just about greed. It was about sustaining an image he could no longer afford. Prosecutors argued that he used his celebrity status as a weapon, convincing people he was still living the life of a platinum artist. Sellers trusted the name, victims handed over goods, believing the payments were on the way. But in reality, the payments were fake and the debts piled up. The same charm that once won over millions of fans became the tool that prosecutors said conned his victims. And by 2025, the facade collapsed entirely. It's the question fans keep asking. If Sean Kingston had already proven he could make hits, why didn't he just keep making music instead of drifting into crime? The truth is, staying relevant in the music industry isn't as simple as dropping another song. Kingston's early success came in a specific era, mid-2000s pop reggae, when radio and MTV could make a track go viral overnight. But by the 2010s, the sound of popular music shifted fast. Streaming took over, trap and EDM dominated, and Kingston's style wasn't connecting with audiences the way it once had. On top of that, building a sustainable career requires more than one hit. It takes consistent reinvention, management, financial discipline, and often a strong team behind the scenes. Kingston struggled with all of that. Lawsuits, medical bills from his accident, and reports of reckless spending drained his resources. Instead of adapting musically or leaning into the nostalgic lane like some artists do, he tried to maintain the lifestyle of a superstar without the income to back it up. And when the music couldn't pay the bills anymore, prosecutors say he turned to fraud, a shortcut that ended up costing him everything. The truth is, most rappers don't actually get rich off streaming or record sales alone. In fact, unless you're at the very top of the charts, music by itself rarely pays enough to fund the kind of luxury lifestyle we see online. The real money often comes from everything outside of music: touring, brand deals, merchandise, business investments, and sometimes reality TV or social media partnerships. Artists like Jay-Z, 50 Cent, and Diddy became wealthy not just by rapping, but by owning liquor brands, fashion lines, or even tech companies. But here's the twist. Not every rapper has those opportunities. For some, the flashy lifestyle is more about appearance than reality. Renting cars and jewelry for social media posts is common, because in hip-hop culture, looking rich can be as valuable as actually being rich. And yes, in darker cases, some artists have been caught turning to scams, hustles, or side deals that blur the line between legal and illegal. That doesn't mean every rapper is doing what Sean Kingston did, but it does mean the image of endless wealth in rap often isn't what it seems. The truth is, most rappers don't actually get rich off streaming or record sales alone. In fact, unless you're at the very top of the charts, music by itself rarely pays enough to fund the kind of luxury lifestyle we see online. The real money often comes from everything outside of music: touring, brand deals, merchandise, business investments, and sometimes reality TV or social media partnerships. Artists like Jay-Z, 50 Cent, and Diddy became wealthy not just by rapping, but by owning liquor brands, fashion lines, or even tech companies. But here's the twist. Not every rapper has those opportunities. For some, the flashy lifestyle is more about appearance than reality. Renting cars and jewelry for social media posts is common, because in hip-hop culture, looking rich can be as valuable as actually being rich. And yes, in darker cases, some artists have been caught turning to scams, hustles, or side deals that blur the line between legal and illegal. illegal. That doesn't mean every rapper is doing what Sean Kingston did, but it does mean the image of endless wealth in rap often isn't what it seems. Sean Kingston's story isn't just about crime, it's about wasted potential. At 17, he had the world at his feet. His music defined summers, inspired fans, and earned him collaborations with the biggest names in pop. He could have been a long-term force in the industry. Instead, mismanagement, accidents, financial troubles, and poor decisions pushed him down a darker path. The fraud wasn't just a crime, it was the final act of a man trying to hold on to a dream long after it slipped away. And that's what makes his downfall so tragic. Because behind the prison bars is a reminder. Sean Kingston could have been a legend. Instead, he became a cautionary tale about what happens when fame arrives too fast and the foundation isn't strong enough to hold it. Subscribe to What's News for more drama.